Hello, welcome to another knowledge sharing episode of 30 Minutes with HR. I am your host, Rita Kusi. 30 Minutes with HR is a partnership program between KUSI Consulting and the Association of African Universities. I would like to acknowledge our sponsors, Hotel. We are actually here at the Executive Lounge at the Hotel. I would also like to acknowledge redundancy Travels. They have been very helpful in getting us to our shoot. And last but not least, I want to acknowledge Nationwide Medical Insurance. Be sure to give them a call for all of your healthcare insurance needs. Today, we are discussing the toll of redundancy on HR and employees. And when we come back, I will introduce you to our guest.
Welcome to Redundancy Travels Product Knowledge Series, and I'm excited to talk to you about our FIT tour service, where you get the opportunity to customize the product to your taste. And with that, we take your details, your destination you want to go, the date you want to travel. We're able to do it to suit your budget, so you don't need to worry about breaking the bank when you are traveling with this kind of service. You can visit us as the details are on the screen as you see, or you can call us on the numbers showing on the screen. Let's plan your trip for you, and you know with Redundancy, we always let you feel the beauty of life.
Redundancy Travel feels life's beauty.
Hello, welcome back to 30 Minutes with HR, your premier human resource show for employers, employees, HR professionals, job seekers. Basically, anyone can watch this show and gain insights from it. Today, we are discussing the toll of redundancy on employers, employees, and also HR. And I am joined by Senyo M. Ejaben. Senyo is an author. He is a human resource and labor specialist, and he's also the founder of CAS LLC, which is it's a dispute resolution
A labor
firm.
and dispute resolution firm. Yes.
Okay, so welcome.
Thank you.
It's actually not your first time on this show. This is your second time, right?
Yes, this is the second time.
You were with us.
Last year I was on the show.
Wow. So welcome back.
Thank you.
New set. How does it feel to?
It feels great. It feels like home.
Excellent.
Yes.
Does it really? So I'm always excited talking to Senyo. He has a great sense of humor. But today's discussion is not a funny one at all. We are talking redundancy, which is a reduction in workforce. Another term for redundancy is layoff, yes, which is involuntary termination,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So I'll have you actually get into the definition of redundancy.
So just as you've said, Rita, redundancy is basically a reduction of force, and it's a process where during the amalgamation, that is the joining of two companies, or during the restructuring of companies, or during the closure of companies, workers lose their jobs. And so if the restructuring results in the loss of jobs, then we say that the workers have become redundant, and so the redundancy process must be followed. So generally that would be the general definition of what a redundancy process is.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think we don't talk about the issue of redundancy enough in this country, especially within the past year. I'm sure you are aware of the changes, the drastic changes that have been made in the finance sector, with all the closing down of some of the banks, and also the savings and loans, microfinance companies, which obviously, if all those companies close down, it means that a lot of people are losing their jobs.
Yes.
Yeah, so can we talk a bit about that?
Sure. So in mergers and acquisitions,
okay,
or in the liquidation of companies, one of the major issues that come up is either the integration of workers into the new entity, if it's a merger, or the redundancy or the exit of workers or talent that would not be needed by the new entity. Of course, if a company is closing down, then it means that the workers would have to be exited. So the restructuring of the reforms in the financial sector has resulted in a lot of job losses, and this, even though is normal, is difficult, especially because it's quite difficult to find jobs these days. And so when people have to lose their jobs, it brings about a lot of social and financial issues. But having said that, it is also important that when workers have to lose their jobs under the processes of redundancy, the legal procedures are followed so that their rights are fully enforced.
Okay.
And so that they do not walk away having been shortchanged, but their rights will be asserted, and they would know that yes, this is not necessarily targeted at them, but it's part of the process. And so under the circumstances, they walk away from the redundancy table with something they can use to re-establish themselves, etc., etc.
Okay. Okay. I think, with redundancies, unfortunately, I don't believe a lot of employers are honest, especially with mergers and acquisitions, right? When the company's being taken over, they do provide some false hope to employees and have them think that they may be moving forward with the organization. But let's be honest, I think everyone pretty much has their own agenda,
yes,
right? When it comes to business. When a company is being taken over, the chances of them bringing in their own people and laying off the staff of the older company, I think, is very high.
Yes.
Right? So that actually leads to a lot of people losing their jobs.
Exactly so. So, this is a very important issue you've raised, because normally in mergers, acquisitions, or in the restructuring of companies, one of the communication strategy would be to first assure everybody that no employee is going to lose their jobs. Now, technically, that is not quite often the case, because when you merge two entities, the new entity would have a new identity, and that new identity may not need all the talent that the old entities had. So under the circumstances, even if there's a merger or acquisition, and the workers are assured that nobody will lose their job, that would be in the interim. But going forward, say between 12 to 24 months, there would definitely have to be a reduction in force to ensure that the new entity takes on the design and structure that it is set up for. Okay. Yeah, so it is always important for employees to know that once there is the announcement of a merger or acquisition, or of course if it's a liquidation, that one everybody knows they are going home. But if there's any form of restructuring, workers need to psychologically, be prepared that possibly they may be losing their jobs, so that they can start, planning and preparing the next line of their actions, more strategically, than to wait and sit and hope, and then to be hit with the news within 24 hours that you will no longer be part of us. And that takes a toll on a lot of workers.
And I believe planning starts at the very beginning, right, upon entry, because let's be honest, no employment is permanent. Yeah. Most employment is at will. The employer can lay you off, regardless of whatever reason. However, what are some measures that an employee, when you're applying for a position, what can you do to maybe cover yourself in the case of redundancies? Are there certain questions you can ask? Is there certain clause that you should look for in the employee manual and your offer letter? How do they protect themselves at the very early stage?
So let's walk through the redundancy process. And I always tell prospective employees and also the employed, those who are in employment, that once you walk into the door of an organization, you have to know that at some point you're going to walk out, even if it is upon retirement. And so the exit from an organization is something that every employee should look out for and also prepare for. So what happens during a redundancy, in accordance with the labor law, is that first of all, any employer who contemplates restructuring or amalgamation or even liquidating or insolvency, where workers are most likely to lose their jobs, would have to give to the chief labor officer 3 months notice in writing prior to the date of the effective date of the exercise.
Wow.
If there's a union, the law also says that the union should be given same notice. The law doesn't mention employees specifically, but on the ground, if there's no union, employees are supposed to be communicated with or information shared with employees. So the law allows that then if there's no union, employees as a group or the group of people who be affected or the entire workforce should be updated on the going-ons of the company, which probably may lead to the loss of jobs and redundancy. So there's a 3 months window, which is really important. Let me explain this a bit because it's important.
Please do.
Normally, a lot of practitioners think that the 3 months notice for redundancy is actually a termination notice. It's not. It's a consultative notice. It's a notice that says that in 3 months this might happen, so let's start talking. So the clauses, the termination clauses in a contract of employment still exist and still is enforceable under the circumstances of redundancy. That's the first one. Good. So beyond that, then within the consultative notice period, the employer is supposed to share information on possibly the number of positions and jobs that are going to be affected, the number of workers that are going to be affected in the various classes, from which departments. Information they also have to share is what led to the decision to lay off workers or to restructure, and what the impact would be on the various employees. And then most importantly, what a lot of people do not normally bring their minds to bear on is the issue of the fact that the law requires the employer to assist the workers who would be impacted to mitigate the impact of the redundancy exercise. For example, by giving them training to be able to be abreast with new talent acquisition, employable skills, and those other trainings, and then also to take them through processes that helps them to deal with the job loss psychologically and emotionally, and then also possibly to help the employees reach out to other similar organizations in industry to employ them. So that where another organization may be looking for that kind of talent that is being lost, then the employer can reach out to those organizations to help the employees to get new jobs. But these aspects of the law often are not enforced, they are not applied accordingly. But that is why these discussions are good, and they have to be going on, so that someone must try and help enforce those aspects of the law. Okay, so beyond the consultative period is also the issue of negotiation. The law requires that the redundancy pay or severance pay is compensation that should be paid to the worker that loses the job during a redundancy exercise. And this severance pay is negotiable. In other jurisdictions, their laws prescribe specifically what amount of money or how much money as compensation should be paid to a redundant worker. Our law does not do that. Our law leaves the door open for negotiation, and there's a reason for that. During redundancies, all organizations are not the same in terms of their financial capacity. So they negotiate on all those number of factors so that they can come to a conclusion that best fits and is accustomed to the situation,
Okay.
the reality
Which
on the
I
ground.
think is fair, right?
It
Because
is
again,
fair.
not every organization has the same amount of resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the problem that creates is the issue of disagreement. Once an employee is losing their job, they are hurt and they are emotionally very charged. So often they are not rational in terms of their emotional stability. So they tend to be difficult negotiators under those circumstances. The employer also would be battling with issues of finances, because if the finances of the company was good, everything was okay, then restructuring would not be necessary, or redundancy or insolvency or liquidation and all of those things would not be necessary. So then it becomes a tag.
It's very tough.
Yeah,
situation.
and so the law says that negotiate. However, the window of opportunity is provided by the law, where it says where the parties are not able to agree, then they have to turn to the National Labour Commission to help them use ADR processes like mediation, arbitration, and also facilitation to help the parties to agree on a specific redundancy package.
Okay.
But not every employee that goes through a redundancy process
a package.
is entitled to a
Okay.
package.
I was going to ask you that.
The law says that where an employee suffers diminution, that means that, for example, if there's a measure and the employee's pay and allowances and benefits are all the same, the employee does not suffer any losses
Okay.
in their old pay. Okay, so under those circumstances, they are not entitled to any compensation. It is only when they suffer a loss of the job, or if they're moving into another job within the restructuring process or another job position, and they lose any of the benefits, then that is liable to an entitlement to the redundancy pay, which is the compensation for the loss of those benefits or the job.
Okay. That was a lot of information you just shared. That was loaded, so thank you very much. I just want to bring it back to the negotiation process. I believe a lot in setting HR policies, right? Especially at the onset of any organization. I just did a workshop a couple of days ago on that. So with regards to negotiations, is that something the employer can do at just to avoid conflict? Can they do that at the very beginning when they are hiring an employee? Can they set that policy in place so that the employee knows from early on that, you know what, if I am to be laid off, this is the package that I would be presented, so that it doesn't become, you know, an issue of conflicts later on?
Yes, there's the two schools of thought on that, and there's been a lot of debate since 2005 when the law was actually, it was passed in 2003, but because the National Labour Commission was established in 2005, that is when we started really seeing the law in action. So a lot of debate has been around this. The first school of thought is that why don't you predetermine the rate, the rate of pay of the redundancy, so that by the time of redundancy, at least everybody knows what is going. You avoid
you would have even prepared and planned and put the money aside just in case, right?
Then the second school of thought is that, well, when the redundancy hits, because nobody can really predict the future, you may find it difficult to pay what you have predetermined. And then what happens? It creates more disputes. So it is just good that per the law, when the time comes, you negotiate. I am more in tuned to the first approach, where the whole package is predetermined.
Exactly.
If it is predetermined, normally would advise employers that then they can, in their financials, provide
Plan for it.
they can provide for it so that they always have a fund available for such purposes that they can use for. And under those circumstances, it is very easy to establish. You know, organizations that do well are organizations that plan. So to handle redundancy processes, it's all in the planning. When we establish an organization, we know that when employees come, because times change and situations change and the environment changes in terms of business environment, redundancies are inevitable. They are basically a part of every life cycle of an organization. So it is important that organizational leaders plan for these redundancies so that when they occur, they can easily step up to it and then handle it more effectively.
Okay, thank you so much. We will be right back actually, and I obviously have more questions. You know, this is a topic that I feel needs to be discussed often, especially because of the times that we're in. So we'll be right back with more conversation about redundancy and the toll it has on HR, employers, and employees. So stay tuned.
Treat yourself to a serene, plush, and unique experience. Check in at the AH Hotel, East Legon, where every stay is unique.
Everybody wants to be the best at what they do for the people they're doing it for. That's why, after 13 years of providing you with top-notch healthcare nationwide, the market leader in the private health insurance industry is going the extra mile for you. Instead of hopping from pharmacy to pharmacy, now you get your prescription drugs delivered straight to your doorstep. We will restock your chronic medication on the regular, so you don't have to stress to keep track. We provide on-site clinics that offers you professional medical consultation from the comfort of your office. Enjoy these amazing benefits and so much more by signing on to Nationwide Medical Insurance today. Call us on 0800-222-222 or email us at info@nationwidemh.com. Nationwide, we go the extra mile so you don't have to. Join the healthcare family.
Welcome back to 30 Minutes with HR, your premier human resource show for employers, employees, job seekers, and everyone. I believe this is an insightful show for everyone to watch, actually. Again, thank you to our sponsors, AH Hotel. We are here live at the Executive Lounge. Thank you for Redundancy Travels for transporting us. And also, thank you to Nationwide Medical Insurance. Be sure to give them a call for all of your healthcare medical needs, all right? We are back discussing the toll of redundancy on HR, employers, and employees, and I'm joined by Senyo M. Ejabeng. So Senyo, I mean, you were just sharing a lot of insights before we went on break. What I would like to know, and what I'm sure a lot of the people watching would like to know as well, is with the recent changes to the finance sector, with the redundancies that have occurred within the past year, is there something that you think HR could have done? Is there a role that HR could have played to make sure that this didn't occur?
Well, yes, but if it's about stopping or stopping or preventing the job losses, I don't think that that would have been possible. But in terms of guiding the organizations to handle the process a lot more effectively, yes, that would be the role of HR in handling of mergers and acquisitions and liquidations. The role of HR is key because when you merge two companies, you have to integrate not only the operational aspect of the business, but the people as well. And when it comes to integrating the people, you are integrating their benefits, you are integrating culture, and you're also integrating conduct generally. So under the circumstances, HRM should have a huge role to play in helping the organization to, one, communicate effectively, and also two, to comply with the dictates of law as required by legal processes or fair procedure. And then thirdly, to advise on the best way of mitigating the impact of the job losses. So under the circumstance, we can look at the recent financial sector reforms, and I think that communication could have been handled a bit better, because when communication is not handled well internally, then you find a lot of external communication in the media. That there are a lot of organizations, or that a lot of cases where mergers and acquisitions have occurred, but there was not that much brouhaha in the media.
Exactly.
So communication of the process to workers and all other stakeholders, action planning or joint action planning, joint consultations, very, very important in these processes. And I think that these are some of the things that HRM can lead and support the organization with whenever such things occur.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. You know, I think communication is actually, it's critical, I think, in a lot of instances, especially with HR, engaging employees and being able to communicate effectively with them. One of the toughest things I've ever had to do in my HR career is actually lay off. But not just that, but like I literally had to lay off friends. So in that instance, I mean, can you imagine the sleepless night, the plan and the thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Are we still going to be friends after this? How do I get them to understand my position? We talk a lot about the role of redundancy on employees, which of course is natural because they have the most to lose.
Yeah.
However, let's talk about the toll it takes on HR professionals as well.
So let me sit well.
Please sit well.
This is the crunch of the matter, because a lot of people overlook the toll of such processes on the HRM practitioner. Under the circumstances, an HRM practitioner is normally under double the pressure that both the employee and the employer would be under, because both employees and employers would bring their pressures down to bear on the HR practitioner. So, and normally everybody thinks that an HR practitioner is supposed to be okay. Everybody runs to HR with their problems. But who takes care of the HR practitioner? So it's an important aspect of this that you've raised. HR practitioners will often be under pressure from the employees because they are losing their jobs. And I know examples where HR practitioners who normally are the face of the redundancy exercises become a target of some of the employees, and sometimes are threatened, including death threats, and also threats of spiritual harm, etc., etc. Then on the other side, the employer would also be giving HRM pressure to get the process done with, given timelines and all that, based on which the performance of the HRM person is going to be measured. So what I normally would advise HRM people is that they should not take on the entire responsibility of shouldering and driving the redundancy process. They should always bring on board an expert, consultant, and a team of advisors to partner with the organization and help them go through the process. Under those circumstances, these consultants and experts would normally soak in some of the pressure for which would have been taken by the HRM person. So it is not only about maybe losing money or paying expert advice for, or paying experts or advisors for such processes, but it's also a strategy to make sure that after the process, everything goes on smoothly, the organization returns back to normal, and also is re-engineered to be able to perform as though nothing happened. But when this is not done, there are a lot of insecurities that become the residue of the process, and then that becomes an Achilles heel that may mitigate against the performance of the organization and also the internal relationships. You know, in mergers and acquisition and redundancy processes, the aftermath of the process and how the organization copes is important. And most especially how the security or the insecurities of the, let me put it this way, the mitigation of the insecurities of the workers who remain.
Okay.
For them to be able to now be loyal and fully engaged to continue with their work, and therefore driving performance in the organization is very important. Because if that does not happen, and through the process there are a lot of antagonism and fights and disputes, and those are not resolved properly, then going forward the organization starts to limp instead of running.
I love that you brought that up, right? Because it's not just, when we talk about employees being affected, it's not just the employees who are facing redundancy that are being affected,
yes,
the co-workers as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you manage that relationship? You know, yeah, you lose hope, you become nervous, you become fearful of your job.
Job security
exactly.
becomes a problem.
And it also takes a toll on the employer as well, because if people are feeling this way, you better believe they're probably looking for a way out of your organization. You know, so that affects turnover as well. Interesting. So I think we've literally hit on so many points in this conversation, and what I'm gathering from it all is that everyone has a role to play when it comes to redundancy, right? Obviously, you, the employee, I always tell employees, make sure you read the fine print, get your employee manual. If you have any questions, ask questions, yes, right? Because you have to also know how to protect yourself from facing any redundancies.
Exactly.
Right? So ask these questions, have these conversations even before you start. And obviously, HR has to make sure that they are keeping up to brush with the laws and the rules, and they are having these conversations. They are literally planning ahead. The organization also has to be planning ahead, yes, in case anything happens, because anything can happen.
Sure.
You know, I'm sure the companies that were closed down last year and this year alone, they probably didn't see it coming. And it happened. So how do you plan? How do you make sure that you are ready? And is there even a right way to even to lay people off?
Well, yes, there's certainly a right way and a wrong way. But for the employee, every employee needs, like I said at the beginning, every employee needs to know that once they're working, there's a possibility of working out. Exactly. So if you ask me, I would say that every employee should make sure that they have a primary job and a secondary job, and possibly a tertiary job. So they spread their skills around and make sure that when they lose the primary source of income, they can have some temporary, lay on before looking for maybe other major jobs, and so there must be a backup for employment under all circumstances while an employee is engaged with an employer, because anything can happen.
Exactly.
For the employers, it's basically about making sure that they are compliant. We have the best advice available. Okay. They do not go through the process without advice, exactly. Legal advice, exactly. Technical advice, and then they also make sure that they are financially prepared, exactly. At all times. Exactly. So now redundancy is something that organizations should provide for. Once they do that, the stress of financing the process is reduced, because redundancy is an expensive process, especially in terms of payment of the packages and so on. Yeah, and for the HR practitioner, it's important to be abreast with the contemporary issues that continue to come up regarding this area of practice. So they have to be abreast with case law, that is the pronouncements of the courts on disputes regarding these. They have to be abreast with the areas of the law that we are talking about, through to how disputes are resolved when redundancy exercises are done, as well as generally being on top of what should be done and leading the organization to go through the process without any hitches and as smoothly as possible, managing the communication process with the workers and so on. Okay. So is there a bad way of doing it? Yes, and oftentimes when I do a detailed study on specific redundancy exercises that I've done, the bottom line often would be a gap in the communication. Okay. So the workers normally are not well informed, and because of that, a lot of rumors come up, and then the process becomes difficult. Exactly. Then also, when the workers are agitated, how they are engaged is also another level of communication skills that HR people must show. So for me, communication is key, as we have said. Then the wrong way of doing it is not following the law. Okay. And not following due process. Under those circumstances, you find that the employees most definitely will come to practitioners like us, consultants, who would then file complaints on behalf of the workers, or the workers will find themselves to court or the Labour Commission themselves, and then the whole process now starts becoming very murky. Okay. So there's definitely wrong ways of doing it, but the best is to make sure that we are compliant and we have the necessary advice. Excellent.
And you mentioned something that also struck me, and that is establishing partnerships or relationships with other business entities. Yes. Because when you have to lay people off, but you must accommodate them and make sure that they find employment, yes. Who will you turn to? Yes. So I think businesses, rather than looking at those within our sector as competitors all the time, maybe we should look to them as, hey, partners, let's establish some, just in case, if things don't work out for my business and I have to close down or lay employees off, at least I can give, my colleagues. And also another very, very helpful pool of stakeholders are suppliers of the business. Yes. So vendors. If you have very good suppliers, you can roll over one or two workers to these suppliers, so that at least you mitigate the numbers a bit, so that if maybe it's 1,000 people going home, if you can do about 50 or 60% of those kind of mitigation, that would be perfect. And I think especially for HR, it's very important, right, to establish relationships with other HR professionals. Exactly. They are the ones that do the hiring, right? So this is definitely a message to HR. Be sure to establish partnerships with other HR professionals to help you, you know, through that process. But this has been a very good conversation, and I just felt it was so needed. We needed to talk about this. We needed to have this discussion and provide this insight, you know, not just for employees, but for employers and also for HR professionals.
And policymakers.
And policymakers as well, exactly. You know, we need to, I think, start thinking, times have changed. Things are changing, so how do we keep up with our policies? But I do hope there's a change where maybe employers will have the option to put in place any redundancy clause or policies ahead of time before hiring the employees to kind of help them so that it doesn't become an issue. Because I think it becomes more of an issue at the end because everybody's so tense, there's so much pressure, and now you want to start negotiating redundancy pay. I don't think that's the best idea, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
So now, here's a bit of the fun part. I know you're usually Mr. Friendly. You are like, you know, in our HR group, you're a superstar. You're a superstar in HR, you know.
Really?
That, right?
I didn't know that.
Well, now you know. Now you know. And I would like to share with our viewers that Senor has actually published a book. So can you tell us where we can get copies, and can you tell us a bit about what the book is about?
So the book is titled Career Toolkit for Successful Job Hunting. I think that it's a very good book, not because I wrote it, but because of the content. It handles job search from a different point of view, where you have information on how to actually plan and search for the job, how to prepare and get the job in terms of interviews and all that. And after you are done, I think it's one of the books that would tell you what should go into a contract of employment and what you should expect from a contract of employment and how you can negotiate a contract of employment. So that is basically the scope of the book, and it's currently at Legon Bookshop and also Vide Bookstore in Osu.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Thank you. I hope you go and pick up your copy of this book, because he is an HR expert. So if you get this book, I'm sure it'll be able to really help you with all of your HR needs, getting that job especially. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the viewers? Where can they find you? Maybe other services that you offer that they can tap into?
Basically, mergers and acquisitions is, and especially the HR component, the employee relations component of mergers and acquisitions is one of the things I do very well. It's one of my niche areas. So yes, if anybody needs information, further information on mergers and acquisitions, they can always go online. Just Google my name, Senor Emajabeng, and a lot of my contacts and everything would. I'm very, very easy to find online, and so they can always contact me online, and I'll be available to offer them any advice and also guidance that they need.
And you're also always very willing and just so helpful. You know, I think in the HR space, you're just that go-to guy. I think we're even planning a session with you, registering services, where you're going to be teaching us.
Yes, that's pro bono. I practice HRM with passion. I find that it's an area of our lives. We all work. We spend more hours working than doing anything else. We spend more work in the workplace. And so if the workplace is not friendly and the workplace has too many problems, then our lives become problematic and we are not healthy. And also we're not able to fully achieve our capabilities and our usefulness of our talents and gifts. So it's a passionate thing for me to be able to share knowledge and advice and build the capacity of people in this area of practice that seems to have a lot of problems in our part of the world.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, it definitely comes across that way. So thank you very much for accepting to even come on again a second time. So now the third time we have to have Senor back, all right? You're just quite knowledgeable, so I really do appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you.
And I'm sure everyone watching appreciates having you on as well. So
thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of 30 Minutes with HR. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Hotel, Nationwide Medical Insurance, and Redundancy Travels. We will see you next week.
Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet with our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming equipment, among others. You are sure to get the best of productions. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU Studios via the following email addresses: info@aau.org, AAUTV@aau.org, or ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on +233 244 736280.
Hello, you are watching Event Updates on AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. Event Updates brings you information about upcoming higher education events happening in Africa, and it is brought to you by the Association of African Universities. I am Isabella Tutahinakwa.
Je m'appelle Alexandra Mpaba Johnson.
The Global Development Network (GDN) invites researchers from low-income or middle-income countries to submit research proposals on the theme "Unpacking the Health, Environment, Economic Well-being Nexus" for the Japanese Award for Outstanding Research on Development (ORD). Research projects and proposals can focus on local, national, regional, or continental policy initiatives and come from any discipline within the social sciences, as well as focus on ongoing policy initiatives, past ones, or initiatives currently being set up. Eligible countries for the ORD competition are those classified by the World Bank as low-income or middle-income countries. The competition is open only to researchers who are citizens or permanent residents of these countries. Applicants must include their CV in the application and should clearly state the age, the citizenships, the country of residence for the past 5 years, and the current institutional affiliations. Interested applicants are to follow the GDN's dedicated online submission link on the screen to submit their proposals, organizational profiles, and CV before 30th September 2020. For more information, please visit www.gdn.int/awards2020 or call +911 14323 9494 or +912 6139 494. You can also email communications@gdn.int or jcosta@gdn.int.
Global Development Network, GDN, invite les chercheurs de pays à revenus faibles ou à revenus intermédiaires à soumettre des propositions de recherche sur le thème déballer le lien santé-environnement, bien-être économique pour le prix japonais de la recherche exceptionnelle sur le développement nommé ORD. Les projets et propositions de recherche peuvent se concentrer sur des initiatives politiques locales, nationales, régionales ou continentales et provenir de n'importe quelle discipline des sciences sociales, ainsi que de se concentrer sur des initiatives politiques en cours, passées ou en cours de mise en place. Les pays éligibles en concours ORD sont ceux classés par la Banque mondiale comme pays à faible revenu ou à revenu intermédiaire. Et le concours est ouvert uniquement aux chercheurs, citoyens ou résidents permanents de ces pays. Les candidats doivent inclure leur CV dans la candidature et indiquer clairement l'âge, la nationalité, le pays de résidence au cours des 5 dernières années et les affiliations institutionnelles actuelles. Les candidats intéressés doivent suivre le lien de soumission en ligne dédié du réseau display de Google qui s'affiche sur l'écran pour soumettre leurs propositions, profil organisationnel et CV avant le 30 septembre 2020. Pour plus d'informations, veuillez visiter www.gdn.int/awards 2020 ou appeler le +91 11 43 23 94 94 ou le +91 26 13 94 94. Vous pouvez également envoyer un courriel à communications@gdn.int ou à jcosta@gdn.int.
Leap Africa is calling for applications for the Social Innovators Program and Award 2020-2021. This year, the fellowship is open to receive applications from English-speaking West African countries. Fellows are empowered through a series of training sessions, mentorship, access to local and international funding and partnership opportunities, as well as the opportunity to be a part of a global network of social change agents. Selection criteria are level of creativity or innovation applied and their entrepreneurial approach towards social change. Experience mobilizing people and resources to achieve set goals. Applicants must give compelling reasons why they would like to participate in the fellowship program and also show a strong desire to increase the impact of their change initiative. Demonstrate a passion for social change and active participation in community building, as well as willingness to implement appropriate systems and structures to sustain the innovation developed. Interested applicants are to fill the application form and submit via the fellowship website www.leapafrica.org/sip-apply before 30th August 2020. For more details, please email info@leapafrica.org.
Leap Africa lance un appel à candidature pour le programme et le prix des innovateurs sociaux 2020-2021. Cette année, la bourse est ouverte pour recevoir les candidatures des pays anglophones de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et les boursiers sont habilités grâce à une série de sessions de formation, de mentorat, d'accès et des financements locaux et internationaux et à des opportunités de partenariat ainsi que la possibilité de faire partie d'un réseau mondial d'agents de changement social. Les critères de sélection sont le niveau de créativité ou d'innovation appliquée de l'approche entrepreneuriale de changement social, l'expérience de la mobilisation de personnes et de ressources pour atteindre les objectifs fixés. Les candidats doivent donner des raisons convaincantes pour lesquelles ils aimeraient participer au programme de bourse et montrer également un fort désir d'augmenter l'impact de leur initiative de changement. Ils doivent démontrer une passion pour le changement social et une participation active au développement communautaire et avoir la volonté de mettre en œuvre des systèmes et des structures appropriées pour soutenir l'innovation développée. Les candidats intéressés doivent remplir le formulaire de candidature et le soumettre via le site web de la bourse www.leapafrica.org/sip-apply avant le 30 août 2020. Pour plus de détails, veuillez envoyer un courriel à info@leapafrica.org.
Are you ready to be an international UN volunteer? The UN Volunteer is calling for applications for the UN Volunteer Program 2020. This is an opportunity to create a positive impact and be a significant force for achieving peace and development. Interested applicants must be 25 years old or older, must have a university degree or higher technical diploma, at least 2 years of working experience in a professional background, must have a good working knowledge of English, French or Spanish, must be committed to the value and principles of volunteerism, have the ability to work in a multicultural environment, have the willingness to work with people and local organizations, as well as strong interpersonal and organizational skills. For more information and to apply, please visit www.unv.org/become-volunteer.
UN Volontiers lance un appel à candidature pour le programme des volontaires des Nations Unies 2020. C'est l'occasion de créer un impact positif et d'être une force importante pour parvenir à la paix et au développement. Les candidats intéressés doivent être âgés de 25 ans ou plus, posséder un diplôme universitaire ou un diplôme technique supérieur, avoir au moins 2 ans d'expérience professionnelle, une bonne connaissance de l'anglais, du français ou de l'espagnol, doit s'engager à respecter la valeur et les principes du volontariat, avoir la capacité à travailler dans un environnement multiculturel, avoir la volonté de travailler avec des personnes et des organisations locales, ainsi que de solides compétences internationales et organisationnelles. Pour plus d'informations et pour postuler, veuillez visiter www.unv.org/become-volontiers.
The Swedish Environmental Protection Agency, UNDP, and UN Volunteer are calling for online volunteers for the Young Environmental Journalist campaign to address environmental and human rights impacts in the mining sector in 4 resource-rich countries: Colombia, Kenya, Mongolia, and Mozambique. This joint campaign is aimed at empowering young volunteers between the age of 18 to 31 to raise awareness about and have a voice in decisions around management and use of mineral resources. To participate in the campaign, volunteers need to be between 18 to 31 years of age and register with the UNV online volunteering platform, fluent in English and at least one of the local languages in Colombia, Kenya, Mongolia, or Mozambique. The process is open to all regardless of citizenship, but demonstrating knowledge about environmental and human rights issues in a targeted 4 countries will be an asset. No traveling is required. For more details on requirements, please visit www.onlinevolunteering.org or email sangita.katka@undp.org or amina.said@unv.org.
L'Agence suédoise de protection de l'environnement, le PNUD et UN Volunteers, UNV en sigle, lancent un appel aux volontaires en ligne pour la campagne Jeunes journalistes de l'environnement, afin d'aborder les impacts sur l'environnement et les droits de l'homme dans le secteur minier de 4 pays riches en ressources: la Colombie, le Kenya, la Mongolie et le Mozambique. Cette campagne conjointe vise à responsabiliser les jeunes volontaires âgés de 18 à 31 ans, à les sensibiliser et à avoir une voix dans les décisions concernant la gestion et l'utilisation des ressources minérales. Pour participer à cette campagne, les volontaires doivent avoir entre 18 et 31 ans et s'inscrire sur la plateforme de volontariat en ligne, parler couramment l'anglais et au moins une des langues locales en Colombie, au Kenya, en Mongolie et au Mozambique. Le processus est ouvert à tous, indépendamment de la citoyenneté, mais la démonstration de connaissances sur les questions d'environnement et de droits de l'homme dans les 4 pays ciblés serait un atout. Aucun déplacement n'est requis. Pour plus de détails, veuillez visiter www.onlinevolunteering.org ou envoyer un courriel à sangita.katka@undp.org ou amina.said@unv.org.
That is all for today's update. Event Update is brought to you by the Association of African Universities. Please follow us on all social media platforms at Association of African Universities on Facebook and YouTube, AAU TV_African Universities on Twitter, and AAU TV Official on Instagram. I am Isabella Tutahinakwa.
Je m'appelle Alexandra Johnson.
Welcome, Africa, and this is another exciting edition of AAU Talks, and AAU Talks is brought to you by the Association of African Universities. We are coming to you from the University of Ibadan, where we will be sitting with the postgraduate college provost, and we will be looking at postgraduate education and research in Africa. Don't forget that you can join the conversation via our social media platforms, Association of African Universities on Facebook and AAU_TV on Twitter. You can also log on to tv.aau and you will also catch most of our videos live and also our post-production as well. I'll go for a short break, and when I return, I will let you know who my guest is fully, and the conversation continues. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back from the break. If you just tuned in, you are still watching AAU Television, and this is a special edition of AAU Talks brought to you by the Association of African Universities, and we are coming your way from the University of Ibadan. We are sitting with Professor Jonathan Babalola, and he is the provost of the Postgraduate College of the University of Ibadan. You are welcome, Prof.
Yeah, thank you. Nice meeting you again.
Yes, it's my pleasure, and I'm so much excited to interview you once again.
Yeah, thank you.
And also congratulate you on the good work that you are doing to promote postgraduate education in Ibadan. We were here about 5 months ago talking about
true.
PEDAL and what PASGA is doing to support African higher education. But this time around, we are here talking about research, which falls under another umbrella of PEDAL, that is a PDT program, and that is the advanced method, advanced training for multi-method and policy-oriented research. You being the provost for postgraduate education, I was part of the lessons that started right from day one. What is the state of postgraduate research in our universities, especially in the University of Ibadan?
Well, essentially, when a lecturer is employed to teach, to do research, and community service. But the way things are, it's been difficult for most lecturers to do personal research. So when you hear of research these days, you're talking more of the research is being conducted by postgraduate students, because without it, they won't have their degrees.
Exactly.
So when you talk about research, essentially, majorly, you'll be talking about research is being conducted by postgraduate students. Things were not so good before, but with time, we've been improving, and I think the state in which we are now is much better than where we probably were in the last 6-7 years. But before then, things were much better. Suddenly things nosedived, but now I think we are picking up. If you've read newspapers and probably rankings, you've seen that quite a number of universities are trying to come back in terms of research, because I believe that is one great thing that can make a nation to develop.
Great. So, Prof, in terms of quality of research done by our postgraduate students, from the master's level to the PhD level, how do we improve the quality of the research output? Because most of the time we find them on the shelf, and you could see the disengagement with the output, and that which can easily respond to policy.
Well, I want to say that in most cases there are reasons why researches are conducted. And there's one of our big ancestors who once told me there are 3 types of researchers. and the three of them are important. The first set of researchers he mentioned are people who are always looking for new things. Once they get to a place, they discover a new thing, they will blow it up, they will leave the place, go for another place, and then looking for another new things. Those ones are like butterfly researchers.
Okay.
There are others described as bee researchers. So a place somebody has discovered, they will stay on that same spot, and for years they are unveiling what, trying to unravel what is the situation and things like that. That's the second type of researchers. And the third ones are the ones that have sweet mouth. They have ideas. They may not be able to do it, but when they write and things like that, they get a lot of grants. But execution is normally a problem. So that's another type of researcher. So you have the three types of researchers. Now, when we want to look at the state of research, I told you earlier that there are reasons why people conduct research.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm conducting research just for promotion reasons, the major thing will be getting something quality and having numbers. And that is not going to help. And that is what happens in most developing countries. But you see, in developed countries, when you do research, the research is aimed at something.
Exactly.
You are not running after papers. You are running after development. No, here you are not going to be promoted if you have a certain number of papers. But there, you may be promoted with a single paper that is land-breaking. So, the impact of research depends on why you are doing the research and the encouragement you have from your people. I'm a scientist. Most of the researches I do with my students that have great impact are done outside Nigeria. Because the funding is not there in Nigeria, and of course you can't do research in vacuum. So these are some of the factors. So policies, government, facilities available, university environment, and the individual researchers, they are the main factors that affect researches. So if I want to be an international researcher, irrespective of promotion guidelines here, I will make sure I go for something quality, so that eventually when you check Scopus, you will see my name.
Your name.
Check most of this, you say, okay, this person is there. But if it's just for promotion, you just do something and that's all. And such will not get into policy. But if you made up, if a researcher has made up his mind, okay, we are having this problem. What is the take on policy? How do we resolve this? And has gone ahead to go and do research on such. You see, the moment it comes out, it falls into the ready hand of policy makers who are willing to use it. And of course, such researches are not things you do without their knowledge. So this will be carried along from the beginning. So even before you finish, they are waiting for the outcome of your research. And that is when you should make it useful.
Great. And one key thing or one key phenomenon that is a bit worrying at Minas universities also has to do with the fact that now postgraduate students are contracting a lot of consultants and people to do their research work for them. Is it because we are frustrating them too much? Is it because we are not teaching them so well to understand the research process? Is it because they are lazy? Is it because the resources are not there? Is it because, what is the issue?
Okay. The PhD has so many factors. A friend of mine once defined PhD as prayer, hard work, and determination. Okay. The three must be there.
Sure.
The reality is that the type of students we get these days are not the type we used to be. But the type of lecturers we have these days are not the type we used to be. You see, you find it very difficult for a lecturer to wake up without getting to his lab in a day or to his office without doing something academic. When you see a professor who starts selling paint, not that he's producing paint, buying and selling, then you know something is wrong. The motivation and things like that, you know. But if it's something from your consultancy, you are doing fine. So what I'm saying in effect is that the environment, the society has changed the type of researchers we have. Because if a lecturer is not satisfied with the amount he earns, and he has to feed his children and things like that, then you'll be forced to look for money elsewhere.
Okay.
I hope you get what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I do.
So now, there's so many factors. So I've said government, the amount, the money they earn, the type of people who come into research, because there are a number of people who are actually not PhD students type, in quotes. but because there's no job, they are back there, they want to do a PhD. And of course, what you find will be different from somebody who's actually keen on doing a PhD. So these are some of the factors. You say in terms of frustrations, yes, some could be frustrated. We are all not the same as supervisors, but I don't expect it, because a supervisor is expected to mentor, not just supervise, is expected to mentor his PhD students. So if you mentor your PhD student, he gets to learn so many things from you, then you do the type of work you probably do. And many lecturers don't know, or supervisors don't know, that when your student fails, that you have also failed.
Sure.
Because if you are taking in a student, signing on a student, then that means you have agreed that the person is good enough for a PhD. So if you are not finishing through, then there's a problem with the supervisor as well. So my expectation is that supervisors will encourage their students and not frustrate them. So facilities not available is one problem, the type of students another problem, and contracting PhDs out. I think the university will have to check if our exams and the various seminars the students have to give are there. If you've contracted the PhD out, it will be easily detected. Let me give you an example. We normally take abstracts to examine the content of the work a student has done. There was a time from public health, a student said that while doing research, he picked water from some well, and he saw sulfur from the well, from the water in the well. And the idea is that there's a petrol station close by, that petrol from there seeped out because of rotting tank or whatsoever into the well. And the amount of sulfur he got in the well is more than what you even get in the crude oil. So now you say, that cannot be. Something must be wrong. So a close look at the candidate's work after a lot of interview, we discovered that he took his sample to somebody to analyze for him. And this person simply gave him results. And since he doesn't have an understanding of what and what to expect, he took it, hook, line, and sinker.
And brought it
to us. But from experience, we know that shouldn't be. So it actually shows the person gave the work out to somebody else to analyze. You know, because we don't have all the facilities, the expectation is that you can take samples there, but you stay there and watch. You have an idea of how the things should be run. Even they are not going to allow you to do it yourself. You are there, you can see the result coming out of the machine. So these are some of the things that do happen. And what we have actually been doing now, we know students give out some works to be done for them because of the multidisciplinary nature of research these days. You may not be expert in all the fields. So not even all the things you are reporting that you are experts in. So if somebody have done some things for you, we now teach them to be able to do, to have some level of knowledge in the area that are not their primary areas.
Great. And then, Prof, you know, another key issue has to do with supervision. We know now a lot of the supervisors who are the lecturers in the universities have a lot on their hands. Their teaching loads keep increasing, and they're also publishing, doing their own things as well. And so most of the time, do you think that there is and then the graduate students are also increasing? I mean, every university across the continent is increasing enrollment for its postgraduate programs or education. Do you think we still have enough skills in terms of supervision? Do you think we have the expertise?
Yeah, I think so. Probably I start from the last question. Numbers are increasing, but supervision capabilities not increasing. Like in my university, we have it as a rule. For instance, you can supervise more than 6 MSc students and not more than 6 PhD students at the same time. So if you are not having more than that, that means you have enough time to deal with all the students. And you say they are teaching, they are doing research. They are not doing researches on their own. The researches they are conducted are the ones done by these people.
The students.
And as long as the supervisor also needs promotion, he will have to keep his eagle's eye on the researches. For instance, when I first took over as dean, I know normally I will be greatly affected. I get to school early in the morning. I teach from 7 to 9 virtually every day. Then I take time to see my students from 9 probably to 10 or 11 before meeting starts at the other end, and then go for administrative work. And when I finish by 4, when most people are closed, I go back to the lab and see what has happened. And the idea is that if you are supervising students, there should be time when you interact with them, even if it's not every day. at least once or twice a week. You take the papers and say, okay, what have you done? Why did you get this? And things like that. So by the time you ask a number of questions, the students will be straightened, and then you do good supervision.
Great.
So I think no person who is keenly a researcher will just go without supervising.
Okay.
Because even when you are in administration, you still go back to your work when you leave the office.
Great. All right. So we'll go for a short break, and when we return, we'll be looking at the relevance of the advanced method training to University of Ibadan, and why is University of Ibadan investing so much into this training for your students and academics as well.
Thank you.
You are still watching AAU Talks, and AAU Talks is brought to you by the AAU Television. My guest today is Professor Jonathan Babalola, and he is the provost of the College of the Postgraduate College of the University of Ibadan. I'll go for a short break. Please stay tuned if you can.
Botswana Accountancy College is a business school that was set up over 2 decades ago to contribute towards the human capital development in Botswana and beyond. BAC has over 20 years diversified its product portfolio to offer accounting, business, leisure, management, and ICT-related programs at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, as well as consultancy short courses to augment professional skills. In achieving this diversification, the college has partnered with UK-based universities of Derby, Sunderland, and Sheffield Hallam University, as well as professional bodies such as SEMA, Beaker, AAT, ACCA, CIA, Cisco, Microsoft, SAP, ESA, and SIPS, to allow our graduates to have a globally recognized qualification and be globally competitive. To learn more about BAC, contact us on 3953-062 in Gaborone or 241-0558 in Francistown, or visit our website on www.bac.ac.bw. Also, you can visit our social media pages on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. BAC, celebrating over 20 years of creating business leaders.
Welcome back from the break. My guest is Professor Jonathan Babalola, and he is the provost of the University of Ibadan, specifically the college, postgraduate college, and we are discussing the space of postgraduate education and research in the University of Ibadan and generally Africa as well. So, Prof, before we left, we had wanted to look at why University of Ibadan is strategically investing in training your PhD students and also training your academics, most especially the early term academics and mid-term academics in the advanced multi-method and policy-oriented research.
Well, we have a foresight, and we know we should do things the right way.
Okay.
I know what most government will want is to invest in something and you have the fruit within months and days and years, where everybody says, oh, he has done this, he has done that. Personally, when I took over as the provost, I said, look, anything human capacity development, you must go for it. The result will not come probably when I happen to be the provost, but some people will reap it from it much later. You know, we've had to spend this much because we believe that if we invest in the lecturers and we train them, they will in turn come back and train their students. And so just going to the primary route, giving enough nutrients, so when they grow up, then we are going to have a lot of
bumper harvest
impacts. You know, they will have a lot of impact on people, on the students. So that is one primary thing that why we think we should, as much as possible, invest in training. Because if they don't know, then what are they going to teach? So if there are new developments, then they should be familiar with the new development. You know, knowledge is not static.
Exactly.
The way we see things before, suddenly you just grab that things are now different. When I was in school, what we know is that there are 3 states of matter. But now there are no longer 3. People talk about 4. I don't know whether the 5th is going to come.
Absolutely.
So we have to keep up. And that is why we think we should invest in training our lecturers.
Great. So at the end of the day, what message do you have for the entire continent, especially your colleagues who are also running postgraduate programs, or who are deans or provosts of postgraduate schools in Africa?
Well, I think the primary thing I would say, having qualitative postgraduate education is much more important than having so many programs, so many students, because the impact will just be terrible at the end.
Yeah.
When you have postgraduate students that are no better than undergraduate students. So that is my first, my first advice.
Okay.
And the way this is done is, as much as possible, get equipments. As much as possible, train the personnel. As much as possible, network with others. You know, researches that are done under shade these days, they don't grow beyond the shade. But when you network, discuss people here, you have a very good network, and then the research impact is going to be great. So let's open up, let's work together, let's develop the continents. That is the advice I have for them.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
We are so much grateful.
I'm very grateful.
My guest has been Professor Jonathan Babalola, and he is the Provost College of the Postgraduate College at the University of Ibadan. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Christy Sam.
Hey, so this is Dishant from Unica University Common Application. I recommend you to watch AAU television.
AAU TV is the place to be for every person in higher education in Africa. Better be there or be nowhere.
Continuez de regarder la télé et surtout sur le AAU.
Keep watching it and it will change the way you interact with higher education on the continent. AAU, great job.
I want to tell you that AAU television is fantastic, it's educative, it's informative, and it is a must for anybody who is interested in higher education in Africa.
When I was in Accra last year, I did an interview on this TV. It's a very important mouthpiece.
It's a data, it's a bank of all we need for the development of higher education in Africa.
People should make an effort to view it because it discusses very current issues of development across the continent.
I believe that the station will continue to promote the overall development of Africa, particularly in the tertiary education sector.
AAU TV provides a platform and shares a lot of information to a broader audience. So we wish you all the best and please continue serving
AAU TV,
the voice of higher education in Africa.
We are efficient, group number 3. So we are working on relapse prevention management strategies among heroin users at the coastal region. Research shows, or background information states, that out of every person who goes into rehabilitation for heroin, we have a 70% relapse rate. So we are trying to find out what we can do so that drug addicts go into rehab and when they come out, they do not relapse. So we are looking at relapse prevention management strategies, how they can lead to relapse reduction. And how do we do this? We do this by empowering interpersonal relationships and working on gainful employment for these rehab addicts. And from what we have done so far, we realize that we have an indirect causal chain. Ta-da, I'm done. So, any questions?
Okay. Questions, please. Comments. And comments, please. Questions.
Yes.
Just oh, sorry, sir. Yes, madam.
I was thinking, are those mechanisms actually the relapse prevention strategies?
Say that again, are those?
I am thinking that the factors in the middle should fall under the first one.
That should be the X?
Strategies you employ.
And then it will lead
to something else that will lead to relapse.
So can we allow
Hey, group members, help me out here.
Yes, madam.
Now, we recognize that every time a drug addict is taken to the rehab center, we apply a number of strategies to ensure they don't relapse. Maybe in terms of even counseling, building self-esteem and all that stuff. So ordinarily without an intervener, you should realize that strategies help them to reduce the relapse. However, realize that every time after getting out of the rehab center, they still go back into drugs. So we're looking in between here. When they go and interact with the people at home, the friends who knew them before, does it really help them to apply the strategies they've been taught, or it makes them really lose out and you find them going back? And we're looking at a case study of the US, where ordinarily if somebody gets from the rehab, they do not integrate immediately to their immediate family. They are put into another center, and the relationship is built until they have the confidence, get gainful employment to avoid that relapse, which is not the case with Kenya. So we're just looking at that.
Yes.
So I kind of, yes, I'm in this group and I'm going to almost, who asked the question? Yeah. So I think at least I can speak to gainful employment. Perhaps gainful employment is actually a relapse prevention strategy, and the mechanism through which gainful employment reduces relapse, the chance of someone relapsing is something like the financial stability that it provides to the person who's going through, who was a recovery addict. So I would move gainful employment to the cause rather than the mechanism.
Yes.
Yes, still talking about gainful employment. I remember the video we watched at the beginning of the session. Gainful employment may provide more money for both jobs. Gainful employment will provide money for both jobs. Has it really solved the problem, or can it solve the problem?
There's a hand behind you. Just yes, madam.
Sorry, I wasn't here when the video was watched. But what I wanted to find out is that, is it all drug addicts that are not gainfully employed? When you look at the big movie stars who get addicted due to the cost of their work and have sometimes to admit themselves into rehab, or somebody persuades them to get into rehab, is it gainful employment that is actually going to keep them out of drug use? Because sometimes you find that some of them do drugs in order to cope with what they do. And I remember we did a small study among commercial motorcycle riders in Jos. Many of them do not own their motorcycles. The women who own them are some of the Hajias in Pada. Other big influential people own them. So now they say there's a percentage that you have to bring every day. Then they realize that to get that and be able to make a profit for themselves, they need to work extra hard. So working extra hard is not humanly possible just using your strength. So they begin to take stimulants so that they can make money for them and make for themselves. But at the end of the day, they end up working now to sustain a habit rather than gainful employment because they get addicted.
Thank you very much. I think the facilitator will have the final say on this before we move on to the next one.
Not final, I just want maybe a suggestion that can help us to really appreciate this more is maybe to unpack the strategies.
Yeah.
Because if you have isolated the strategies, you'll be able to know if the strategies will lead to this that will eventually reduce relapse. Because we didn't really unpack the strategies. People are finding it difficult to understand it. Maybe it's possible that if you can know these strategies, one strategy, two strategy, three, and these strategies are used in the management, we can see which of the strategies is speaking to what and what can happen. So I think that may help us. So as we develop this, you may begin to think about these strategies. So they become factor 1, factor 2, factor 3.
Okay. Because I was even going to suggest that maybe they simply look at one particular strategy.
Or one strategy.
For research, and then look at sort of the mechanisms, possibly unpack those ones. That I'm sure there's a lot that can then lead to relapse reduction.
Yeah, that's it.
So I just want to add my voice to commend the group. This is good. But remember, we're doing innovative research design. And to really maximize this opportunity, we have to keep our minds open. As we move along, we'll get to concept and concept formation. And then by the time we get to that stage, I'm sure you will revisit this question of strategies and whether you want to retain it as a course or you want to refine it further to something you can really lay a firm hand on. But for now, we have something that we can work with and apply it, so this is fun.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
So we are still taking coverages and then interviewing our participants. We'll have the second person. All right. So you're welcome to AAU Television, madam. All right. So you tell us your name, your university, and then your portfolio position there.
Sure. My name is Lynn Mwaniki. I am from the University of Nairobi in Kenya. I am a lecturer in sociology.
Okay. All right. So you made a very beautiful presentation. I think it was 5 minutes. Can you walk us through the 5-minute presentation?
Sure. My presentation was on relapse prevention strategies among heroin addicts at the coastal region of Kenya, which is in Mombasa. So pretty much the issue we are looking at here is that we have a lot of rehabilitation centers that try to rehabilitate heroin addicts. But once they go through rehabilitation, they often find themselves going through relapse. So I'm trying to come up with strategies that can help these addicted individuals stay away from using drugs and probably come up with policies that the government can actually use so that we can try to reduce the issue of heroin addiction in Mombasa.
So what are some of the strategies? I know you've not gone through the process, but off your head, what are some of the commonsensical issues and then things that you'll be looking at?
Right. One of the reasons that causes people to use drugs is poor interpersonal relationships. So when we strengthen people and when we encourage people and teach them how to have good relationships with their families, this could actually help them to avoid using drugs. And some of them are unemployed, some of them have been rejected, they have been abused. So if we try to take them through counseling, help them deal with the issues that they are actually going through, this can help them keep them away from drugs.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. We'll come back again and then find out the critical issues that you are considering. Great. All right.
Are you an institution or individual? Do you intend to organize a memorable event to be archived for future reference? Then look no further than AAU Studios, because it's your best bet with our spacious studio and state-of-the-art media equipment such as 4K Panasonic video cameras, KinoFlow lights, assorted microphones, live streaming equipment, among others. You are sure to get the best of productions. Visit us at Trinity Avenue, East Legon, adjacent the National Accreditation Board, or contact the AAU Studios via the following email addresses: info@aau.org, AAUTV@aau.org, or ransford@aau.org. Alternatively, you can call us on +233 244 736280.
Hello, you're watching Event Updates on AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. Event Updates brings you information about upcoming higher education events happening in Africa, and it is brought to you by the Association of African Universities. I am Isabella Tutahinakwa.
Je m'appelle Alexandra Mpaba-Johnson.
The Global Development Network, GDN, invites researchers from low-income or middle-income countries to submit research proposals on a theme unpacking the health, environment, economic well-being nexus for the Japanese Award for Outstanding Research on Development, ORD. Research projects and proposals can focus on local, national, regional, or continental policy initiatives and come from any discipline within the social sciences, as well as focus on ongoing policy initiatives, past ones, or initiatives currently being set up. Eligible countries for the ORD competition are those classified by the World Bank as low-income or middle-income countries. The competition is open only to researchers who are citizens or permanent residents of these countries. Applicants must include their CV in the application and should clearly state the age, the citizenships, the country of residence for the past 5 years, and the current institutional affiliations. Interested applicants are to follow the GDN's dedicated online submission link on the screen to submit their proposals, organizational profiles, and CV before 30th September 2020. For more information, please visit www.gdn.int/awards2020 or call +911 14323 9494 or +912 6139 494. You can also email communications@gdn.int or jcosta@gdn.int.
Global Development Network, GDN, invite les chercheurs de pays à revenus faibles ou à revenus intermédiaires à soumettre des propositions de recherche sur le thème déballer le lien santé-environnement, bien-être économique pour le prix japonais de la recherche exceptionnelle sur le développement nommé ORD. Les projets et propositions de recherche peuvent se concentrer sur des initiatives politiques locales, nationales, régionales ou continentales et provenir de n'importe quelle discipline des sciences sociales, ainsi que de se concentrer sur des initiatives politiques en cours, passées ou en cours de mise en place. Les pays éligibles en concours ORD sont ceux classés par la Banque mondiale comme pays à faible revenu ou à revenu intermédiaire. Le concours est ouvert uniquement aux chercheurs, citoyens ou résidents permanents de ces pays. Les candidats doivent inclure leur CV dans la candidature et indiquer clairement l'âge, la nationalité, le pays de résidence au cours des 5 dernières années et les affiliations institutionnelles actuelles. Les candidats intéressés doivent suivre le lien de soumission en ligne dédié du réseau display de Google qui s'affiche sur l'écran pour soumettre leurs propositions, profil organisationnel et CV avant le 30 septembre 2020. Pour plus d'informations, veuillez visiter www.gdn.int/awards 2020 ou appeler le plus 91 11 43 23 94 94 ou le plus 91 26 13 94 94. Vous pouvez également envoyer un courriel à communications@gdn.int ou à jcosta@gdn.int.
Leap Africa is calling for applications for the Social Innovators Program and Award 2020-2021. This year, the fellowship is open to receive applications from English-speaking West African countries. Fellows are empowered through a series of training sessions, mentorship, access to local and international funding and partnership opportunities, as well as the opportunity to be a part of a global network of social change agents. Selection criteria are level of creativity or innovation applied and their entrepreneurial approach towards social change. Experience mobilizing people and resources to achieve set goals. Applicants must give compelling reasons why they would like to participate in the fellowship program and also show a strong desire to increase the impact of their change initiative. Demonstrate a passion for social change and active participation in community building, as well as willingness to implement appropriate systems and structures to sustain the innovation developed. Interested applicants are to fill the application form and submit via the fellowship website www.leapafrica.org/sip-apply before 30th August 2020. For more details, please email info@leapafrica.org.
Leap Africa lance un appel à candidature pour le programme et le prix des innovateurs sociaux 2020-2021. Cette année, la bourse est ouverte pour recevoir les candidatures des pays anglophones de l'Afrique de l'Ouest et les boursiers sont habilités grâce à une série de sessions de formation, de mentorat, d'accès et de financements locaux et internationaux et à des opportunités de partenariat ainsi que la possibilité de faire partie d'un réseau mondial d'agents de changement social. Les critères de sélection sont le niveau de créativité ou d'innovation appliquée de l'approche entrepreneuriale de changement social, l'expérience de la mobilisation de personnes et de ressources pour atteindre des objectifs fixés. Les candidats doivent donner des raisons convaincantes pour lesquelles ils aimeraient participer au programme de bourse et montrer également l'impact de leur initiative. Ils doivent démontrer une passion pour le changement social et une participation active au développement communautaire et avoir la volonté de mettre en œuvre des systèmes et des structures appropriées pour soutenir l'organisation. Les candidats intéressés doivent remplir le formulaire de candidature et le soumettre via le site web de la bourse www.leapafrica.org. Là, si c'est avant le 30. Plus de détails, veuillez envoyer un courriel à info@leapafrica.org. Are you ready to be an
The UN volunteer is calling for applications for the UN Volunteer Program 2020. This is an opportunity to create a positive impact and be a
that it is mobile friendly and the speed was corrected with the new website. So make sure to also review your speed. Point number 5, measuring. Very, very, very important. Just a quick run through of a few. Log into your Google Analytics frequently. Make sure that you know everything that is going on. How many users access via mobile? How many access via web? PC, sorry. The speed of your website, pages visited the most. There's a lot of information you can get from Google Analytics to make changes and better your website. Then we normally also use polls on certain pages to get feedback on our website. You can use focus groups with different stakeholders, do surveys. Then we also recommend a tool called Hotjar. It's a web measuring tool that can show you the amount of click on, where did they click, where did they scroll down to, how far they scroll down. That's very valuable information. Then just on the right, you will see I've included our homepage, UFE page views for. You will see it's just over 6 million page views.
Hi, Lenani. I think she's still having connection issues. Maybe we give her just a minute to see if she could reconnect.
As your success change.
Sorry about that, but okay. Seems we've lost Lenani. If she is able to come back, we'll be able to complete her presentation. So we'll continue off with Mr. Patrick Waikuti, and he's from the University of Ghana, Legon, and he will continue with his presentation. So, Mr. Patrick, please.
Thank you very much, Frank. And
seems the internet is not helping us out today at all. Let's give Mr. Patrick a minute and see if he can join. Zoom has this bug where it reloads when you're using it, so maybe that might be the issue. So let's just give a few seconds to see if you'll be able to rejoin.
Frank.
Yes, please.
Maybe we can discuss some questions while we wait.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So some of the questions I have. The first one I have is from Lucas. Lucas, I'm sorry, I don't believe I can mention your last name. I'm sorry about that. But he was talking about assessments for accessibility to the
Hello.
website.
Good.
Hi. Okay, Mr. Patrick, please, you can go ahead. Maybe you could turn off your video if that would.
I just lost in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sorry.
So please, you can continue.
So, good morning, everybody from Ghana. I'm Patrick Kuti from the University of Ghana. And I'll go through the slides by introducing the organization. I'm supposed to talk about staffing based on the model we have at the University of Ghana for managing our websites. So a little about University of Ghana. We have student population of over 38,000. We have 4 colleges, 3 campuses, 12 regional learning centers, and 3 research stations. I chose this picture, which I got from Twitter, because it was taken from top of the library. And on my left, you see where our data center is supposed to be located. The ICT, the UGCS is on the right, overlooking some academic facilities and then residential facilities, because we are talking about student-centeredness. So we manage university websites, web applications, based on the fact that universities are set up for research, learning, and teaching. So we manage the university's websites. We help the university to publish research. We help them to manage journals. And of course, there are student registration, enrollment. There are web portals to do that. This is just a screenshot of our student web portal. So like I'm sure many of the universities here, we have the Public Affairs Directorate, which is the main unit responsible. We see the public affairs as the resource owner as far as websites is concerned. So Director of Public Affairs can call that a page be pulled down or something be edited, and that has to be obeyed. Of course, we have colleges. The colleges are supposed to have websites. And our colleges, we have schools, institutes, centers, departments. All these units have websites. And we are supposed to make sure, together with the public affairs, that all our website follows our brand manual, which was authored and reviewed in 2017. So all websites, this brand manual are supposed to guide all websites being developed. So let me talk about how we are structured. In 2012, the university decided to merge 3 IT units. Before then, we had what we call the ICT Directorate. So that unit managed the infrastructure of the university. We had the planning and management information systems, as the name suggests, manage the ERP. And then we had the library unit. So we had IT people scattered in all these 3 directorates. So it was thought that we should merge. All these IT organizations within the same university should merge and form the University of Ghana Computing System. Before, we had directors for all these 3 units. So we had one head, who is called the Chief Information Technology Officer, and he has 3 deputies. So ICT, UGCS was structured into infrastructure, services, security, planning, and portfolio management. So this is supposed to give you a clearer view. So we have the CITO, then he has the 3 deputies. And of course, we have administration. The services unit where I belong has the IT services engineering. So we are supposed to make sure we manage all developments in the university, web, mobile, everything. Then academic computing units manage the library systems and the e-learning, that is learning management system. We have the administrative computing that takes care of our ERP. Of course, there is training, and we have an assistive technology lab that is supposed to make sure our students with special needs are seen to. It may interest you to know that the head of that unit is visually impaired, very smart guy. So all these units come together to manage these services. So I'll just rush through this. Our big, it's better you understand how ICT, UGCS is structured, so we can narrow down to the web unit. This is an old organogram. Few of the staff here have moved on, but this is just a summary. So University of Ghana went collegiate. Before then, we had faculties, schools, and departments. We decided to group into college system not long ago. And immediately that was done, the UGCS thought we should realign in order to focus our service to all these colleges and then, of course, the central admin. So like most universities, the specialist group are limited. So you have highly skilled staff who ideally must be in every college, must be in every school, department, or center. We realized that we couldn't have that in every college, everywhere. So we decided to realign and form what we call a core specialist group. So that is a shared service. So everybody come to this core service, but then I'll show you how we broke it down up to the unit level. So the IT service delivery teams are accountable for provisioning college level and corporate level service. Breaking it down, we introduced the concept of sending the first level support to the colleges. So every college should have a webmaster, graphic design if they have, designer if they can afford, and all that. So these people are on-prem offering this first level support to either a college or a school or a department or a center. Now, because skilled staff are limited, we have the second level support, so where myself and my team are, so we are the center. So when there is a problem, there's a website to be created or updated, we expect that one to be handled at the level one. Those are what we call the field engineers. And where it is beyond them, it is referred to the center so that the center can always focus. Then, of course, it's not everything that the expert group can handle. So where it is beyond the expert group, we refer to the level 3, which is the third party support. So these field engineers, at the college level, we had what we call service delivery officers. That is the proposed structure. So the service delivery officer is like the CITO at the college. And all these service engineers are supposed to report to them. And they are the one who will escalate the request to the expert group. So I've talked about it. We did that to maintain a shared group at the center, which has the most skilled web technology and programmers, graphic designers, multimedia experts, communication experts, and the like, to help formulate policies and also make sure university websites are up to the standards that we require. So in summary, We have this is the current arrangement. Our deputy CTO services position is vacant. So ideally, there should have been a deputy CTO services. We have the SDOs, as I mentioned, service delivery officers. We also have research development officers, which are appointed at the colleges where we don't have RD SDOs. They help, and together with field engineers manage the website. And where it is beyond them is referred to the expert group. And the expert group is overseen by the webmaster. As I said, the expert group, we have web developers, we have UI specialists, and the accessibility specialist is the head of the assistive technology unit, who makes sure that content provided are readable by the visually impaired, where we had to move to full-time online learning. He drew our attention that some of our students are hearing impaired. So the lecture notes must, of course, have visual descriptions. The visually impaired, all videos must be described, all images must be described so that they know what they are reading. So they are supposed to pass the content we pass on to our users. So by doing that, we make sure we put the right people in the right roles. Unlike the previous one where the center had everybody, and you will have people, as my CTO used to say, flying below the radar. So the few people get to do the work. But once you send people onto the field as the field engineers, you are able to put people in their right role. Appropriate governance structure is also critical to provide good governance and IT management. So UGCS, we are hoping to have an advisory board. That has not been done, it's works in the process. So I'll jump through some of them. The reason why we had to do this realignment was to make sure that we deliver the service that the university needs. As I said, universities exist basically to teach, to research, and then to learn. And critical as our role is as IT organization, we are supposed to make sure that everything that we do fits into the university strategic objectives. So we are there to provide the environment that will enable the community to collaborate, share knowledge, which is our students. Our students are supposed to be able to share knowledge and also access knowledge. We are supposed to also help facilitate teaching and learning, research, consistent and accurate information so that they'll be available and easily accessible by all. So I've talked through our organogram where we have the shared service, that is the expert group. Then we have the field engineers who are at the various colleges, schools, institutes, and centers. But we have challenges. We've not been able to implement this thing fully. Well-resourced colleges or schools are able to hire these field engineers. Some have actually managed to hire an expert in, let's say, web development that functions at the college or the school. So where you have that, you see that those websites are well developed, of course, guided by the branding manual. But where we don't have that, you realize that those websites have issue. So some of our challenges over the years, inadequate headcount. Government of Ghana for some time now placed embargo on hiring. When I completed university, if you start doing what we call national service in Ghana, at the University of Ghana, you are likely to be hired, unless you want to leave. But it's no longer the case. So that has affected us. As a result of this, colleges, centers, faculty members who have resources tend to look elsewhere. So they need to set up a website for a research grant they've won. They have to be publishing. Because they have some funds, the first thing is to look elsewhere because the staffing situation is not adequate. They don't want it delayed. So all those resources that are supposed to be pumped into the university, they will look elsewhere to go and develop. And that leads to websites, some of these websites not meeting standards. Of course, if you go outside and get developers, they are not guided by our branding manual. Budgetary constraints, I don't have to emphasize, is very so in every universities, most African universities. Change management, the realignment that I mentioned, where we move from everybody being at the center to having service-focused delivery, where we have the shared services, that change has not been fully adopted, but we are almost there. Change management is difficult. So with that not done, it affects standard policies and hosting platform. Skills gap, the same, especially in our area. There's a shortage in skills gap. Getting very highly skilled web developers, graphic designers is an issue in University of Ghana as well. Content availability is a problem. So it gets to some time where you don't know who the owner of a particular website is. It belongs to a college. Where there's an issue, they'll refer to you. A faculty member doesn't understand why his or her content page is not up to date. We believe they should be in charge of their content. But that friction is sometimes there, and that leads to delay in updating websites and then keeping it relevant. So we have issues with IT security. Security is a big issue through our own doing substandard development or targeted attacks, and so we suffer these challenges. Now we have an opportunity because we have students who are ready to access information. They are hungry for information. They are hungry to share. So we have a big opportunity as webmasters to develop websites that are relevant to them. I also believe African webmasters should collaborate. There's a model that I know as WACRIN, and in Ghana we call Garnet, where we are collaborating as far as connectivity is concerned. I think similar models should be embraced by webmasters where we can share ideas, resources. It should be possible for skills to be made available from one university to the other, where templates can be designed and where needed, support universities that don't have the resources. So I think, and I hope you've been able to appreciate the structure we have in University of Ghana as far as our website management is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kuti, for helping us gain an insight into the status of the University of Legon, University of Ghana, Legon, and the web development state there. We're able to see that the last point, as you mentioned, was very true, that WACREN does a lot of work in the West African and Central African region as well, doing that. So that is why we scheduled this meeting, so that we as web developers can communicate, because more often than not, there is no, or to the best of my knowledge, there is no platform like this where web developers can communicate amongst themselves. So it's a starting point where we use in order to be able to come together and then learn more. For now, I don't have any questions related to the University of Ghana organogram and presentation there. But as I mentioned, this was to give you an insight, because the point is no two universities are the same. Every university is unique, their capabilities, their challenges, and their opportunities. So we use this in order to be able to learn and see how we can then improve and then make better changes for us. So, but if there are any questions, please put it in the chat for everyone. I'll get to them when they are there. Okay. There's a question from Eugene Seegers. He says to Mr. Kuti, he says, is there a shortage of skills in the ICT space because there is the hiring freeze, or there's a shortage in general? Mr. Kuti, if you could help us with that answer.
Exactly. There is shortage, one, because of the freeze in hiring the staff. That's basically it. You have very skilled fresh graduates who come hungry to work, but they do their national service and they are unable to be hired because of this freeze that I mentioned. And where it is lifted, these people would have moved on. Of course, industry out there is more attractive than the universities. So where you need them most is difficult to get highly skilled. So it's the two, the freeze and also the fact that generally the industry is more attractive than public universities.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so we would move on, but Leilani was not done. So let Leilani finish her presentation and then we'll continue from there. So Leilani, please go ahead.
Thank you, Frank. Am I audible now?
Yes, very audible.
I do apologize for losing connection there. I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure where you guys stopped hearing me, but
yeah, you are right here. Just right here, yeah.
Okay, so I was discussing the measurements and why it is important to do your measurements. And then I stopped at the stats on the right of the slide where I compared the homepage visits or page views with the student one. So if you do regular measurements, you will be able to see that whatever you do in your design and content is actually successful or not, and if you need to make more changes or not. But for a secondary website, to get more page views than the homepage is actually quite an accomplishment. It's not easy to do that. But it's one of our most important websites because that's for our students. So this is just to show where your analytics can guide you into the right direction. Then at the bottom of the slide, it's just some feedback from our users, from the students that we've tested, did focus groups on. So as you can see out of the feedback, they really like the website. They also sometimes give us extra information, like one of the bullets at the bottom says, please add protection services, and that's more safety information to the website. They've also asked news must be relevant. So this is the kind of feedback you will then get from your users when testing. Always remember that we have to test because sometimes we just push out news articles on the website and don't think of what the users want. We just give them what we think they want. And then just as a summary, the 6 steps again, website design, website content, SEO, website speed, measuring, and then Google as your 6 optimizing strategies. So for Google, I would recommend Google AdWords. There's just a little example of what it looks like to get your website up into the rankings a bit more for people to see it easier. And then also Google Display Ads. Now, Google Display Ads, you can either do an ad that direct people to your website only, or you can market a specific program or a specific campaign. So that's the other recommendation. And that was then actually the end of my presentation, to keep to your 10 minutes. Thank you so much.
Very much. Thank you very much, Leilani. I have a question for you here from Galaxy Tab A. I don't know the name. The question is it possible to operate 2 different websites in a particular university, given the fact that you dwelled on the student's website?
I'm just checking if I can see the question again.
Okay, I'll read it again. It
I
says,
see.
yeah, is it possible to operate? Yeah, please go ahead.
I just want to know maybe two different websites, meaning two content management systems, or two different websites, meaning the same two websites for students. But let me try and see if I can answer. So we do have more than one website at the University of the Free State, meaning we have websites with their own unique URLs. But we only have one university website and one student website. So I do not recommend having more than one student website or more than one university website. I just want to see if she added to it. Oh, no. So no, not more than two to operate. Keep it to one. But you can have multiple sites in one site, as I've explained, where they each have their own unique URL. I hope that will answer your question.
Yes, that is fine. Another question from Abraham Twaki says, from your experience, is it better to use a CMS such as Joomla, WordPress, Drupal, etc., or developing it by yourself?
Okay, thank you
as
for
in
that.
Like hard coding it.
Thank you for that question. This is a very debatable question, and I'm sure there will be lots of opinions on this one, and also personal preference on this one. So there's not a right or a wrong. You can use Joomla, you can use WordPress, you can use a self-developed CMS. It will all depend on, firstly, the budget available. What kind of budget do you have to develop or buy a CMS? A lot of institutions make this decision solely on budget. I mean, you could do an amazing website on Joomla, an amazing website on WordPress, or you can spend millions in buying a CMS. We did have our own internally developed CMS at the UFS. It worked amazing. The only concern for me with a self-developed one was that after a year or two, it's a bit outdated with technology. So that's the one concern. If your developers don't stay up to date with developments on that backend to make sure that it continues with future trends, or like adding the new trends or functionalities to it, then it might be a problem. Because some institutions do develop their own CMSs, but then, as I say, they don't do the upkeep. And at the end of the day, it's unstable and you can't work on the CMS anymore. So I hope that will answer your question, but
yes,
none of them are wrong.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lenani. That was a very good way to answer them, because you needed to be diplomatic about it, because as you said, everybody has their preference, and it's very important to execute as you said. And the point you mentioned about it being upgraded is also very important, because if you do that and then you forget to upgrade it, then it lags behind, as it were.
Yes.
So there are more questions, but we'll continue with the presentation, and at the end we'll ask the rest of the questions in order to get answers to them. So we'll invite Micah Akati to continue with his presentation. Thank you very much.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the privilege. I hope I'm audible. I hope everyone can hear me. All right.
Yes,
so
you're very.
I'm just gonna hop in straight to sharing my screen. All right, can you see my screen? I think I'll pause the video just so we don't have any issues. So just move this around. All right, so my name is Micah. I'm happy to share some knowledge with everyone. I think a lot of very important things have been discussed. Also, there's a bit of a construction going on in the next building, so forgive me if there's any bit of background noise. All right, so I'll just hop straight in. So a little bit about myself has already been talked about. I'm mostly in the creative direction space, web development, and then SEO. I'm going to hop straight into my presentation, and I want to talk about the fact that If the background noise is a bit loud, please just let me know. Just give me a minute. Let me just try to tell them to just give me this. Tone down the noise a bit for me. So just a minute. All right,
Okay,
sorry
so
about that. I'm back. Yes. All right. So one important thing that has come up over the years is the fact that when setting up websites, you should always think mobile first. Now, data from Statista shows that over the past few years, as of 2018, we've had mobile phones or people accessing websites for mobile phones reach a percentage of 52%, right? So you have way more people accessing websites through mobile than you have people visiting through desktop sites. So for us African universities, in building a website, you should have a conscious approach to make sure that in terms of your mobile experience for your students, it's always up to par. And I think your research showed some very good findings. I don't know if that research was based on the initial landing pages of those sites or pages that the students access, because in most cases, from my observation, sometimes you'd have the homepage being very mobile responsive, but when you dive in a little bit deeper to some of the pages that students access regularly, most often they are not very mobile friendly. So that's one thing that we could look at, because we've gotten past the stage of Web 1.0, Web 2.0, where it was mostly read and write related stuff. And these days, things have to be mobile first, consider the mobile user, and not just mobile by mobile phone, but tablets and other devices as well. Now, the next phase over the next few years is going to be the Web 5.0, where you are looking to anticipate who your user is and understand them much deeper and tie that into the experience that they have. A common experience or a common feel of that is what happens to us when we get targeted by adverts on social media, for instance. You just search one thing and the next thing you know, you're like, oh wow, they're showing me adverts on this particular thing. You understand? And that's the next stage where as universities we'll have to look at how we tie in some of these experiences to our students. For instance, when students visit your website, do you alert them as to the fact that, okay, we have these cookies there, we are taking these details. And then when you take those details, what do you do with it? That data that you have, do you retarget them with your Google ads or Google display ads like Leleni mentioned, right? So that it gives them a more tailored experience and causes them to interact or patronize whatever you offer as a university much better. All right, so I'll move on to the next. So in terms of branding guidelines, I think that Mr. Kuti mentioned some very key points, mentioned the fact that even in their structure, they have a UI specialist, and a user interface specialist and user experience specialist is very essential to the African universities, because that way you also need to make sure that everything you do ties in with, like as Mr. Kuti said, with your brand manual. It's something that I don't know if it's commonplace for every university, but for those that don't have a brand manual, it's very essential for any organization that does anything meaningful, especially that a university has to deal with larger number of people. And it's also important to tie in to current UI UX standards, just as Leleni also mentioned. Always don't let your interface feel so outdated. A simple cue we can take is a look at what some of the popular apps we use feel like. Sometimes when you switch from Facebook to Instagram or WhatsApp, even though they might have different interface looks, it's not too difficult for you to find your way around because you can immediately identify certain functionality on that. So I think those things should be included in our design of our websites. And we need to be purposeful with our design for our websites. It's not just about going with the latest standard or going with the coolest looks of going, but does it serve the exact purpose that our intended audience wants to do? For instance, if somebody is signing up, a prospective student logs in, does your design meet a prospective student's needs, or is one that's directed towards just general students visiting the site or anybody at all visiting the site? Because various people visit through various channels and visit for various different reasons. So we should be purposeful in our design in that regard. And also in terms of those of us that will be working as webmasters, with some of these universities, organizations, there are a lot of things that you have to look at, right? But I've just tried to summarize some of the basics, and some knowledge that you need, before you even go into looking into certification is to look at the skill set you want to acquire, because as a webmaster, you may not necessarily directly do everything yourself, but you need the understanding of everything to be able to coordinate the various teams. For instance, if you look at Mr. Kuti's organogram, it's quite a huge organization, and the webmaster was somewhere up there. So he needs a fair understanding of whatever is going on beneath him. So you have internet basics, you have markup and scripting. That's got to do with your website building itself and the design, web graphics, web multimedia, the website design, website management in terms of content and all that, legal issues like data management, and like Madam Nodmo mentioned about the fact that we need SSL and TLS on various sites and all that. Looking at web accessibility, people mentioned the fact that considering people with visual impairment and all those things, very essential. And then also understanding how to manage a web project, and then managing a web business, and then the marketing side of things, which also Leleni highlighted with mentioning Google Ads. So here are some of the more popular, or should I say more standardized webmaster certification programs that could be taken online. Not all of them are free. Some of them you pay for it, and then they have scheduled dates where you take the examination. But if you do a search online for some of these things, you're most likely to come up with the certified sources on how the steps to go about taking them and everything. And these cover some of the most of them are by either Microsoft or an association of web developers and all that. So you're going to be fine if you go with either of any of these certification programs, sorry. And you realize that I did also include understanding some knowledge on SEO. It's very essential these days because you have people constantly searching for information about your universities, and it's important that your university is able to meet the right rankings for Google and all that. So I was really glad that Ms. Leleni brought up all those things. And the rest, I feel in terms of certification, since different institutions have different needs, will be more tailored towards what the institution needs. And then based on that, you can go ahead to add any additional certifications that you need. In terms of cloud hosting, I think most universities will probably have their own data centers and dedicated data service and all that. But to just add to those things is to make sure that you don't compromise with the services or products that you use in managing your data. If you cut corners with managing data, you're going to pay the price. It's going to affect your security. It's going to affect your entire operation. So it's very important that you don't cut corners when it comes to utilizing services for your hosting and cloud services. Mainly because I know various universities always work on a budget. And sometimes if the importance on some of these things is not highlighted properly, maybe a less budget will be put there, and then eventually it's going to end up costing the university more than they expect. And then to add to that is for institutions with much smaller resources to make sure that they communicate with some of the big giants like Microsoft and Google who offer certain services for certain things like managing their emails and stuff like that. So they partner on those things. And then security is also very important. You always need a security expert to make sure that, sorry about that. All right, to make sure that, I think my 10 minutes is up, I'll just wrap up. All right, so last but not the least is benchmarking your various websites. And I think that Ms. Leleni did a really good job of listing some of the very important ones. So just to sum up everything, is to always be mindful of your site performance. There are various tools for measuring some of these things. Marketing performance, how well your ads are running and how well your message across to people is doing online. And your search performance in terms of like your rankings on Google and all those things are very important. And your usability index, you need to be able to measure all those things, see how well people are interacting with your website. And your page load times, which is also very essential. Thankfully, internet is improving across the globe. So these days, people don't have that much patience to stick with things that take forever to load, And then bounce rate talks mostly about how long people stay on a website or go deeper after visiting a page on your site. So if they land on the home page and then maybe they are navigating for something and they get frustrated and they walk away, you should be able to detect what's causing that frustration and fix that to help your site make better. SimilarWeb has a very intensive tool that organizations can sign up for that will help them monitor their website performance and everything, and basically do a benchmark for most of these things I've mentioned. So that's basically it for my presentation. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I'll be available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Micah, for the presentation. You really helped us to see where we need to go, the kind of certifications that are available, the branding guidelines, what we should think about when we are building our websites from the user's perspective as well, because more often than not, user experience is not used. There was a test I learned that was called the grammar test. If you give the application to your grandma and your grandma can't find a way, then that means there's a difficulty in the site. So you need to make it very simple for everyone who comes on to be able to navigate easily. We'll move on to William Samagri, who is a security expert, and he will speak. And after that, we'll take the questions. So William, please take us away.
Thank you, Frank. Am I audible?
Yes, please, you are.
Hi, everyone. And yeah, thank you for this opportunity to be able to kind of share what I know. So I'll quickly start sharing my screen. So I can quickly run through it. Yeah, so I'll be talking a bit more about website security for the different things the university has been talking, different people or webmasters have been talking about. So I'll quickly, I'll quickly talk about myself. So in 30 seconds, so I'm William Samagri, currently a security engineer with Trainline. So basically what my company do is we sell train tickets. So in trying to relate it to what is happening here is the general public who buy tickets are like students to us, and they come to us and check our website and check for train tickets that go into a particular place in Europe, and then they just buy it. I've been in the security industry for 5 years. I've worked in professional services, transportation, and also in the education service. So I used to be a teaching assistant at Ghana Technology University. In my spare time, I like to volunteer for other stuff like industry stuff. So IXC Squared is a security body that does stuff out of the workplace in different places to be able to educate people on security matters. So just go on to the next slide. So a lot has been said, and from the first presentation by Nodomo, which kind of shared a lot of some of the challenges that we're going through, and she kind of mentioned a lot of things. Landley also has also mentioned, I hope I'm getting the name right, has also mentioned a few things that needs to be I'll touch upon. First of all, she mentioned objectives. When we design a website, we need to come up with what we want to achieve out of the website. So basically, we want to meet or give information to students, or to students to be able to find some form of information. So a lot needs to go into that in terms of the planning. I'm not really going to go in deep in that, as Lily had already touched on that, but a lot has to go to in terms of planning. Software development cycle. So we have to, this is where the business, I would say the business world has really done well compared to the academia. So business world has really done and kind of be able to identify the value of how to get, how to kind of gain more value from assets or products. So in my instance of the company, we've been able to identify that people are always taking trains. So if for you to get trains, you need to go and buy tickets. So in this instance, I'll say students want to go from high school or senior high school to university, so there are an opportunity has been identified. To create a product like that, you need to understand the software development cycle. I know it sounds a bit complex, but you need to define what you need to do. It's a product, so it must have a life cycle from the time you conceive it, you develop it, and you put in the development process to the time you support it, and you decommission until you put in something new. One of the challenges that's also been mentioned by Patrick, one of the panelists, said there's skills gap and knowledge gap, and that's also a problem even in security, whereby even globally, there are millions of jobs available in security that cannot be filled. And it's not that there aren't a lot of human beings on the planet, but it's because people don't have the technical skills to be able to keep up with the changing landscape of the demand in work. So that's also a problem. So to be able to address that, I would say that university has a great pool of students which are brilliant, and some you can have like a graduate scheme program. If you can pay, that's fine. Advocate for paying, but if you can't pay, it's an opportunity for the student to be able to learn and be able to bring back value to the university. Also, as Patrick mentioned, there are a few universities that kind of are constrained based on budget. Examples like the University of Ghana, which they had a free. So in that way, they are not able to make that investment they need to be able to provide by certain security tools to be able to ensure that, yes, their website is secure, they are doing the right things, they are buying the right tools to be able to protect their website. And also, from what Anadmo said in terms of the analysis they did, it looks like some countries are doing, or some investing in different locations are doing different things. And that might be because of data protection requirements. And as there's no one unified way of or guidance for some the universities to look at. So, like typical examples, like everybody might have heard of the European data GDPR. Basically, all European countries will have to follow, and it kind of is different with implementations, but the core infrastructure remains the same in the sense that everybody will have to do some form of protection and have to inform the people who own or whose data you've collected what you want to do with the data. And also technological limitations. I would say that this is a challenge, and it's always been a challenge that Africa we haven't really invested a lot in Africa in terms of technology, in terms of the services we can use. Sometimes you just want to deploy something and it's just not available. A typical example is if you want to deploy a website and you want to go into a public cloud space, your options are to go to other European countries which are hosted in Europe, and that also kind of affects your traffic, how your traffic is routed in terms of the speed the website will load. Because just imagine you are in South Africa and you want to host it, you're hosting your stuff in Europe or in America. The packet will have to travel multiple continents, has to go from Africa to Europe to North America or something like that before it comes back. So even though it might be microseconds in some industry, which like my previous company, KPMG, affected some businesses. So I'll come on that, give them some things we can do. So what can we do to be able to overcome some of the things? A lot of stuff I've said here, I've mentioned here, kind of really easy to do. They don't cost a lot of money, which some websites can do. So in terms of the hosting, as Micah touched on, there are different ways of hosting. You also has to come to your planning or your software development lifecycle, or what kind of skill set or budget is available to you. Are you going to do it on-prem or off-premise or in the public cloud, or use a third-party hosting provider like GoDaddy or Hostinga or whatever providers you want to use? Another point is to protect your website. There's a lot you can do to protect your website. I'll just talk about 2 or 3. I'll not mention 2, but I'll talk about 2 or 3. So you can do input validation. When people are, when students are doing searches, especially computer science students, they are curious. They want to try things out because they've learned on the course. So they might want to do some SQL injection, might want to write some script and run it against your website, and that can take your website or exfiltrate data from your database. So you must have some form of input validation. I know I didn't put it there. Encryption. So per the research that was conducted by Frank and Nodmo, one thing that piqued my interest was about 57% of website not having encryption, and this is very it's very dangerous in a sense that anybody who has the right tools can be able to see the website. It's not difficult to do. Basically, it's like you leaving your door and putting the keys on the carpet on your front door. And anybody who walks to your house will be able to pick up the key and open the door and get into your house. So it's very, very easy like that. But what we should be able to do is protect data in transit. So ensuring that we are using TLS, SSL certificate, and not just that, but we are using the latest version. So currently we are on version 1.2 and 1.3 is out, which is still being rolled out in some spaces. Using firewalls and content delivery distribution. So that comes in terms of how people are accessing your website and the responsiveness, and also how quick the website has been accessed. So if you measure, you take the least approach and you measure your traffic, you've built a new, you measure that traffic, you'll be able to tell that it's taking, most of my users are coming in from, let's say in South Africa, most of my users are coming in from North Africa. Should I be able to kind of put in a CDN in place, or use a CDN service that can cache my website in some part of that region, that it reduces the latency problems we have in our infrastructure? And also using firewalls. So firewalls are really critical in terms of stopping DDoS attacks. So a DDoS attack is a distributed denial service, whereby someone right now, nowadays, is very easy. People, disgruntled students, can just go on the dark web if they have the right tools, be able to pay a few dollars, usually ranging from $5 to $20, or it depends. But if you have about $5-10, you'll be able to buy a DDoS service and tell them that they should DDoS this URL, and they tell them how long you want to do, and you pay based on that. And some students have money; they are paying thousands of what currency, whether dollars or whatever, and if they are not happy, let's say the results they've got, they can knock down a website. And the more your website is offline, the likelihood is to impact on your student, your delivery of service to the students. So just imagine you've got an influx of students coming who need to register for September intake, and your website has been under DDoS for a week. You just can't meet that target and be able to provide such services. Also, you scan for vulnerabilities. There are certain automated tools out there that are paid for and free that can be used. So, and also ensuring that you have proper channels of reporting, like user feedback. In terms of what can we do to keep the software update, we try to update the software. If you are using a content management system, whether Joomla, Drupal, or WordPress, nothing is unhackable. I would say nothing is unhackable, but what you can do to stay ahead of the curve or stay ahead of the game is update it. And that also comes feedback into the software development cycle, whereby if you want to update, you should have like a dev and test environment, so that you can test whatever changes there so that it doesn't break. There's been times whereby in the business I've kind of pushed for a change that it's broken the website, and you have the business scream at you like, why did you do this? And you have to kind of revert the change. But it's for you not to know that this is not how to do it and this is how to do it. So what I'll say is that you have to update your software in a pragmatic way. Backing up, so having multiple copies of your sites, storing them either in a cloud service somewhere, and also business continuity. Now that COVID has happened, students are not going, and there was a worldwide lockdown. Students are not going into universities if they are close by to be able to pick up forms if they can, or if you don't have the facility to be able to provide online service. So now we have to come back to the drawing board, rethink how we are delivering such services to students, how we can move them online, being an online learning, or something else that the students can be able to kind of keep up, and for the university to be able to have that consistent stream of income. Because without the students, there wouldn't be any university, and it'll be a mission field for us. So yeah, I hope my time is up, and yeah, I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, William, for your presentation. We were able to see the insights that you had in security and what we need to do and what we need to avoid. One thing we also miss out on sometimes is actually paying for the plugins that we use. More often than not, we decide that because we have a site where we can get the hacked version, we jump in and then use the hacked version. So we need to be very careful about that. Use paid for plugins, and then join the community and be able to gain the new insights that are coming on from time to time. I'm very sorry. We are very sorry about the time. We planned to do this for an hour and a half, but we're 5 minutes over time. So what we'll do is we'll answer a few questions and then we will end. So we'll try and move on to 10 minutes more. So we'll end at 12:45. That's 10 minutes from now. So we'll try and answer the questions as quickly as we can. And the point is, many of the presentations, as you realize, was not in depth. The point is, we'll be having multiple webinars after this in order to help to reach out to the audience and then go into details into each point that we mentioned. So please be rest assured that we'll have multiple webinars after this that would address this issue in detail. Also, we're trying to create a community. So that's how come we asked you to register for the webinar. So all those who registered, if you haven't, I'll put the link here so you can go back and then register. We want to create a database of web developers across Africa, and then we can continue to provide these services and these educational information for all of us, not only the web developers, but the communication experts as well, and the PRs, those who are in charge of managing the websites of the universities. So the first question was about, yes, Alex Muthi was asking Lenani how the person can clear old website data from from search engines. How to clear old website data completely from search engines. I don't know how they meant. Lenani, if you have an answer, you could go ahead. If not, you could.
Thank you. No, thank you for the question. We do get that question quite often, especially when professors that's not at the university anymore retire and they still find their details on the website. So it is a question we do get a lot. And the only thing I can tell you is delete. So wherever you have that content on your CMS, please go and remove the content from your backend. But please make sure that there's no other pages linking to that one. Otherwise, you will be creating broken links. Delete the content, fix the links where needed, and then unfortunately, wait for Google to crawl your website again so that the content is refreshed. So it's not as easy as making it disappear in one day. Unfortunately, it takes a while, but that's the best answer that I can give you.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
So that's exactly what I was going to say as well. That Google is the one that crawls the site, and it will keep a cached version of the site over time until it's updates to the new one. So even sometimes when your site goes offline, you could go on Google and you find the cached pages there. So you could use that to help you to reset them sometimes when there's an issue. So that's also a little tip that you could use. Sometimes when your site crashes, you go to Google, you find your website, you see that there's a little arrow beneath, the name of your website. When you click on it, you'll be able to choose the cached. If you choose the cached, that means Google has saved your website sometime. So you could just use that in order to be able to enter and then use that to learn more. I think some of the answers can be answered in the chat area, so please pay attention. The speakers will be answering some of the questions in the chat area. The next question was, yes, Lucas was talking about accessibility of the website to people with special needs, and we already mentioned that and how it's important that must be watched out for. Joshua Bebe asked that FAQs. He had an issue with the FAQs, saying that our focus should be on the user-centered content design rather than having the FAQs, because in his feeling, If we create a separate FAQ, then that means the system itself was not focused on the real users. So what he's trying to say is, if you build your website well, if you make your navigation links and everything proper and it's easy to be accessed, there will be no need for a frequently asked questions. This is a debatable topic, very debatable, but the point you're making is very clear. If you do your design very well, there's no need for a FAQ. As William mentioned, some of these, as Micah mentioned, some of these websites are easy to navigate as soon as you get them. When you get on Facebook or you download Instagram for the first time, it's not too difficult to find your way around because the content has been designed in a way to make it very easy for you to be able to do so. So even though there is a frequently asked questions on all those pages, there is still the ease of use and the user experience that is placed at the fore to help the users to be able to use it. So that is the point. The point is the user-centered content design is very important. Without that, there's no need building the site in my perspective. But there's always the need to create a frequently asked questions for someone who might have struggles with their website. That is the take on it. Mr. Kweku Opomboating was also asking about how to increase the LinkedIn counts for the website. Reference from other sites. I mean, I really don't get the question, but if you could really explain it a bit, Mr. Kweku Opomboating, we'll be able to help you. Okay, Lelani, how would you answer a question saying how to interest private companies to get them to regularly visit our websites? What would you say? How would you be able to get private companies to visit your websites regularly? I'll try giving an answer and then you could come in. For me, I think the whole point is about putting what is in their space on your site. Because when you're searching, now we search mainly using Google and YouTube. Those are the two main tools that are used for searching. When you search there and there's something around that, it would easily be able to be drawn to you. So if what you're doing is not really related to any of the institutions and they are not really seeing the benefit of it, there's no way they're coming to your site. But as we mentioned, there's a lot the universities are doing that they are not posting online. When you post it online, Google gets to know that you're used to putting this information across, so they are to direct people towards your website. So if an institution is looking for that kind of content, it will be very easy to come to you. Because more often than not, there's been situations where at AAU, we're posting a news or a newsletter, and we're posting an article about an achievement a university has done, or something like that. But that achievement which is found on a news website page is not even found on the website of the university itself. So there's no link. You understand? There's no link by which the institution or the donor or the partner can come to the institution because they can't follow the link and get to them. So it's always important that we put our information there and then we are able to get them there. If anybody has something else to add, they could.
Yes, Frank, it's Lelani. I agree completely with what you just mentioned. I also want to add that we have an advancement office working directly with the private sector. We also have career development office working with the private sector at this stage. So if they focus also on their website content, that's also important, not just the main site's content. So from their side, they are also building the relationships with those companies, and also important for them from their side when they do communicate to the private sector is to mention and in their communication to add the links to the websites so that you can draw those people to visit the website. And that might also answer part of the question about the link in. I think the link in question might refer to inbound links. Also asking companies to link back to your website. That's also very important, and to draw people in to your website. But yeah, most importantly, make sure that content that you do refer them to is up to date. So that's all I would like to add.
Okay. King asked the question about, is there a standard budget hopefully in dollars, where universities should have and be willing to spend to have a website or web application built for them. That is entirely unique. Every institution has, based on the system, there are no two projects that are the same. Even no two websites are the same. So it's based on what the requirements are for the system, and then you'd be able to budget it accordingly. So you need to do a broad budget on what's anything you need in conjunction with the site, and then list them specifically, the human resource you would need as well, and then you budget it. But there's no standard. And the most important thing to do is the requirements elicitation, as Lenani mentioned, because if you not get the requirements in, you probably shoot yourself in the foot, and then later on, it's impossible to get it done. So it's something we need to really do carefully. Make sure you understand what exactly the website or web application is for, what exactly they want out of the system. Take as much time as possible. Do surveys, as Lenani did. Do surveys, focus group discussions, and all of that. Get your information clear. Be very sure about what they want, and then use that in order to create your budget. There's no standard. There is no standard at all. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I think we would end here. We are minutes past time. This was a very nice meeting. We're very thankful to all the speakers who were able to buy out of their busy schedules, their time, to help us to be able to have this wonderful discussion. We've learned a whole lot about websites, about branding, about security, and hopefully we'll be able to create a community where we can engage. Now, the main or the end goal of this is to create a standard document that would help all institutions to, when you are building a site, some of the main things you have to look out for. And then we'll be able to put all of them together, and then we'll be able to use that as our standard. So there'll be a document we'll present, but we'll do it as a draft and share it with the community that will be created because of your registrations. And then you would all give your feedback to us, and then we can use that document to finalize a standard that will be agreeable to all universities, and it will be helpful. It will not be the absolute thing you must follow, but it will be a guideline to help universities on how they can build their sites, things they should not forget, the kind of standards they need to realize as well. So thank you very much, everyone. All right. Okay. So before we end, we would want to, yes, there's a recording of this meeting. So the recording will be sent to all the emails that were registered for this event. So we'll play the AAU anthem, and then we would end. Thank you very much.
Voice of higher education,
Okay, so thank you everyone and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.